to our first ever virtual AGM. The first one, for instance, in 113 years. I have no doubt that it will prove to be our finest. I will be chairing, as your president, the meeting, and our CEO, Chris Davis, will be choreographing the questions and other counting procedures as needed, because he will have the full screens in front of him. And I very much express my gratitude to him and his team, which has formidably worked to put this whole virtual AGM together. I think they have done an exceptional job. Chris, before I go to item 1 of our agenda, is there any other offering you wish to give to the participants as to how they are to be heard in relationship to any questions they've got?
I cannot see any panicking faces, so I'm assuming all the instructions have been read and understood. If you are looking at a screen with a 5x5, it is possible to fiddle with the settings to go 7x7 if your computer has enough power. But I'm not going to intend to explain that now. You can get the video settings.
Thank you very much, Chris. So we will move, please, to item number 1, which is apologies for absence. Chris, you have the list.
Yes, I will have apologies from David Godfrey, Hugh Antrobus, Mike Hayes, the Marquis of Zetland, Nick Hamilton, Edward Buck, Luke Redman, Bernard Wetherell, Jeremy Bushell, Miles Buckinghamshire, Mark Howard, Roger Pilgrim, and Louise Barnfield.
Thank you very much. We're sorry not to have them with us, but thank you for recording them. We will now go on to item 2 of the agenda, which is the notice of the calling of the meeting, which was first sent out in September, and authority to indeed hold our meeting electronically, which is provided under the Corporate Governance Act 2020. We can go on, therefore, to item number 3, to approve the minutes of the AGM, our last one, held on the 27th of November, 2019. We want to move to that now. May I ask if there are any matters arising from these minutes, or are you happy to approve them? Will those in favour please raise their hands, as Chris wishes them to do? Are you happy, Chris?
I'm content.
You are content. We could say they are approved with acclaim. Moving on to item 4. Are there any matters arising from the minutes that anybody wishes to raise? If so, please raise your hand. No hands, Chris?
It takes a while to sweep, but I cannot see any hands and no chat, so let's assume there are no matters arising.
Thank you very much. No matters arising. I would now therefore like to move on to item 5, and I would ask our chairman, David Watson, if he would be good enough to update his annual report of 2019-20, which was written in the annual report, and tell us how he sees the scenario as of today. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. I know we agreed it would be casual dress, but the observant will see that I am actually wearing a tie, and having had my second face-to-face board meeting of the last 6 months, where I proudly wore my benefactor tie, I wasn't going to take it off for tonight, and I'm sure many of those watching here tonight will also proudly own them and hope to wear them in the future. So thank you all for your support of the benefactor scheme around the country. is well you first, hopefully our reasonable success. We may well look at the opportunity of facilitating Zoom or virtual access for the future to ensure that as many people as can have the opportunity to listen, at least if not participate in it, because I know getting to London is not ideal for some people. So if this enables access, it's a win, a modest win in a difficult world. Turning to my report, the playing season, which I have to say feels a lifetime ago, was brought to a premature conclusion in March this year with the imposition of the national lockdown. Although it's little comfort now, we were actually fortunate in having a winter playing season such that most of our major events were completed before Boris confined us to barracks. There were even so sad cancellations of the school's rackets doubles, which is the first time since the war years, even 1942 was the last time it was cancelled, denying those in their last year of school a chance to shine, which is a great sadness, I'm sure. The school got victim, as were the British Open doubles, and the notable casualty in the tennis world, obviously being the World Championship Challenge, which has been delayed, but we hope is not a permanent casualty. There were significant sporting achievements in the first half, as I was able to report at the last year's AGM, but it is this year's result. Tom Billings winning his right and earning his world singles title. Tara Lumley, India Deacon winning the first ever Ladies World Rackets event. And in tennis, Camden Rivera returned to full fitness and imperious form, taking both the singles and doubles at Queen's Club this time last year. But as I say, sadly, they all feel a very long time ago. Post-lockdown, the T&RA has been very active, bizarrely, in advising clubs and schools on rules for return to safe play. And despite the huge frustrations that we all have shared, with the illogicality of the rulings emerging from number 10, we have been grateful for the support and careful adherence and patience shown by all to the rules from government and our advice and guidance. I did want to reassure you that we have been aggressively and intensively lobbying for sensible permission to return to safe play. And sadly, for too long a period, our reasonable but impatient requests seem to be falling on deaf ears. But updated as of this week, I do at last think there's an appropriate recognition of the distancing that is possible within our games. However, all is not gloom and doom. At the start of the lockdown, we reached out to all clubs and schools to offer advice and assistance wherever they needed it. We were acutely conscious that the suspension of play and hence income could pose significant risks to our facilities and to the employment of all those employed in the game. After an initial period of uncertainty, government support and the careful stewardship by club boards, coupled with the creative generosity from members and pros alike, has ensured that no redundancies have been necessary, which I think is a remarkable achievement in the world we've been in. We have been pleased as the T&RA to support and protect the employment of some trainees whose career ambitions will hopefully thus just be delayed rather than lost. Looking at the strategic agenda for the T&RA, I just wanted to talk briefly about our strategic priorities as a board and as a governing body. Our first priority, and it won't surprise you, given everything I've said in recent years, is the improvement of the pipeline of professionals in the games of tennis and rackets. You will forgive me for dwelling on the Investing in Professionals initiative led by John Whiting on behalf of the Tennis Committee, and the recipient of this year's Volunteer of the Year Award, the Maltby Salva. I had the pleasure of awarding it to John, and hopefully you'll see a little montage of it later in the event. This programme, which aims to recruit and train 4 new professionals a year for perhaps all of the next decade, has actually benefited, bizarrely, from lockdown and from intense support from approaching 40 volunteers who give them their time working in teams on the mission to attract, recruit, retain, train in management, coaching and tennis-specific skills, and fundraising, most notably. The pro community has played a really big part in this too, and we are now offering higher level training courses and opportunities to all professionals to allow and to encourage them to develop a broader skill set and increase their value to their profession and beyond, if necessary. This is a really exciting programme, and I wanted to thank all of those who've contributed so generously, both of their time and, in many cases, money, to help bring it to fruition. We will be giving regular updates on progress in newsletters and in other social media. Given that we have similar issues in the world of rackets, it is absolutely our aspiration to establish a similar scheme in future years, and early discussions with the RPA have been positive. Our second strategic priority is grow participation, in particular through attracting and retaining youth and through enhancing or building new facilities. In terms of our physical assets, and I can see Charles in my screen, the rebuilt court at Harrow has been commissioned and is in active use, which is great. And I hope many of you watched, and if you haven't, I do encourage you to do so, the time-lapse photography of the daring replacement of the Bickley floor at Morton, which has been a huge triumph. The Hyde have secured their freehold and moved the club to charitable status, and thereby protect the court for the long term. Sadly, at the moment, we don't have any new courts in prospect in the UK. And although we're incredibly impatient, I certainly am, to play Bordeaux, and we wish every success to colleagues in Sydney, Washington, Charleston, and they sound very interesting. With it supported a wide range of youth tournaments and training events, and the enthusiasm for tennis among the young generation continues to grow. But with an average age of 53 in the world of real tennis players, we need to continue to work hard on our demographics. In rackets, the Noel Bruce last year, sadly, had a record participation, and the schools events now benefit from a full range of girls events at the same time, and the energy levels are fantastic. We've been working with the rackets community to boost participation and consider ways to help youngsters with the escalating costs so they continue to play when they leave school, as well as reintroducing the development squads. The pandemic clearly hasn't helped, but I watched, as I'm sure a number of you did, the exhibition event at Wellington, which was really impressive, and Rory and the others involved. That was a great event and allowed quite a number of young boys and girls to watch moving through and be inspired by the quality of play that can be achieved, all carefully socially distanced. Our third priority is to enhance the marketing and media profile of our games. The website is currently being rewritten and relaunched with a modern feel, and our regular newsletters are received and opened incredibly by more than 3,000 people each month. Facebook, whatever that is, and engagement has more than doubled, and tweets and Instagram have grown exponentially. I'm not sure how many of those here present tweet or Instagram. I certainly don't, but it would appear that many do. In a busy world, the competition for attention is huge, but these electronic reports and streaming from not just from the T&RA, but from clubs and schools are growing steadily and are definitely helping increase access to our games, but we can always do more. We're just embarking on a total rewrite of the RTO system using modern tools and technology that will facilitate mobile access and permit much greater connectivity to and from a range of applications. This will take a little time, but it's a really exciting and critical development for our members and for the pro teams. Our fourth strategic priority is to attract corporate sponsorship. The teachers' report on this one, sadly, is at least B-, if not worse. Definitely could do better. Clearly, the tournament context in 2019-20 has not been conducive to attracting sponsorship and is and remain challenged as we emerge, no doubt blinking, into daylight. But if we are to raise our profile and offer attractive financial opportunities to professionals in the game, we have to find a way to bring more money into tournaments and events. Your help in this would be much appreciated. We have engaged professional consultants to assist us, but whilst both games have a number of attractive and incredibly unique features, our main sponsor for real tennis remains elusive. Our sponsorship with Brown Advisory, we are thrilled with, and we hope they are too, as the main sponsor of rackets. And we hope and will do all that we can to ensure that this thrives well into the current decade. President, that completes my report.
Thank you very much for that, David. And indeed, I find it a most encouraging report because there are some very worthwhile projects which you are now utterly focused on with a considerable band of supporters and helpers behind, which is terrific. It really is. In these challenging times, it's good to see such a positive program. However, I know there will be many outside who are attending our meeting who will probably have a question for you. So may I ask those who wish to ask a question of David to raise their hand so that Chris can get them onto the system.
And I will, and Chris or I will by all means, we have the chairs of the tennis and rackets committees and the treasurer also on hand. So if there are questions better directed at those, Chris will put them in the right place.
Over to you, Chris.
Okay, at the moment, nobody appears to be raising their hands.
Shall I endeavour to send you a question, Chris, just to check it all out?
Yes, please. David Watson's asked me if we should do it all again.
You mean start from item 1 of the agenda today? No, please.
No, I meant if we should repeat to allow those for whom London is not accessible, if we should contemplate enabling a virtual meeting again next year for those who would find it convenient to do so.
Well, it's certainly worth seriously considering. But it sounds, David, as if your audience is as inspired as I was by what you had to say.
I hope so.
All right.
I can conclude, David, there are no questions, so
right.
I suggest you move on.
Okay, no, well, I will now move on, if that is all right, with adopting the annual report for 2019-20 by the passing of the Resolution 1 in the notice of the annual general meeting. With those in favour of adopting the annual report, please raise their hands in a manner that Chris Davis can see. can you report, Chris, that the annual report is supported with a claim?
I can certainly see many, many thumbs. I'm content.
Well, that's fine. Thank you. The Chief Executive is content. We will now therefore move on, if we may, to item number 6, which is the Treasurer's report of Andrew Power. And I would like, as with the Chairman's report, to ask you, Andrew, if you would be good enough to update us beyond your report that you had printed in the annual report 2019-20. Over to you.
Thank you, David. So I'll give a quick summary of the highlights for what was in the annual report, and then, as you request, I'll go on to talk about where we are now and looking forward. As you'll see, we've weathered the COVID-19 storm pretty well financially. At the end of the year, we had funds under management of 2.43 million. Of which 1.71 million was in restricted funds, about 1.71 million was unrestricted funds, about 500,000 was in restricted funds, and 240,000 was in endowment funds. Today, because the stock markets have done well since the end of the year in June, we're looking at a funds under management of about 2.63 million. So we've got a good balance sheet. In terms of the profit and loss, last year we had a small loss of 22,000 versus a profit of 80,000 the previous year. And this was really due to, there was a significant increase in the amount of grants authorized. So grants either paid or accrued was 123,000, just over, compared to 44,000 the previous year. So you can see there's a significant investment in terms of professionals and court development. So just a reminder, we manage the finances essentially in 3 chunks. There's the sort of regular activities, which essentially the income is subscriptions, and the costs are the cost of the hardworking office staff and marketing and IT and communications. And there we essentially showed a modest amount of expenses more than income of 17,800, because essentially membership was flat last year, but staffing levels were increased to the surge in membership previous year. As you remember, there was about 1,000 increase in membership this year. Tournaments last year were not really affected by COVID. They took place, and the amount of sponsorship and donations exceeded tournament costs by about £19,000, which was about the same as the previous year. In terms of the third area would be development, and this is the court building and refurbishment of court and facilities, the recruitment and training of professionals, and encouraging participation, particularly among younger members, in the 2 games. As I said, we invested significant amount in terms of grants, 123,800, of which about 95,000 was court development, primarily for Eton, Hyde, Manchester and Morton Morrell. And we also increased the investment in professionals up from 3,000 the previous year to 23,000 last year. And just a reminder in terms of, so essentially as we manage the finances, our objective is to essentially break even on what we call the regular activities, in other words, subscriptions and the costs of supporting the membership, break even on tournaments, and development costs, essentially, which are the grants for courts, for professional training and development, etc. Those are funded by the returns on our investment portfolio, interest, dividend, capital gains. Obviously, year by year, sometimes the expenditures is more than the income, sometimes less, because obviously court development comes around only occasionally, so it's a somewhat lumpy nature, and obviously depending on stock market performance, the capital gains or losses vary. So that was a brief summary of last year, just to remind people. Turning to the outlook for this year, Clearly, there's been impact of COVID, most notably on tournaments, as very few tournaments have or will occur. So on regulatory activities, we saw a small decrease in the number of members, or we have seen a small decrease in the number of members. There are 100 fewer members. However, the lower subscriptions will be able to offset by the fact that during the early parts of COVID, most of the support staff were furloughed for 3 months. So we had an offsetting decrease in staff costs of that. As David said, we'll be spending more on upgrading RTO. Some of that will fall into this year, others will fall into the next year, given some of the expenditure has been delayed due to COVID. We're continuing to invest significantly in courts and especially in professional development. The expenditure on court development in grants will probably not be as great as last year, because as I said, last year was a sort of record year, but particularly we're supporting the IIP, Investing in Professionals program, to the tune of about 50,000 this year, and we'll do it annually for the next 3 years. Finally, in terms of the investment portfolio, interest and dividends will be, particularly dividends are likely to be down, as we've all read. A lot of companies cut dividends during the pandemic, although capital gains are likely to be higher, assuming the stock market performance continues to rebound. So I suppose in conclusion, we're financially healthy and we have been able to and will continue to be able to invest in the development of the 2 games. So that's my summary. David, any other? Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew, and it's good to hear that the overall resources and net assets of the T&RA are looking in pretty good shape at the moment. Well done. Can we now please turn, Chris, for you to pick up any questions that our members who are participating wish to have of Andrew?
Yes, we'll ask anybody who wants to ask Andrew, wish to ask Andrew a question, please either send me a chat message, or if you raise a thumb, I will try and detect. But I've got rather a lot of you on my screen. Okay, I see no thumbs or messages, so I propose we have the opportunity for further questions later, David. My suggestion is you move to adopt the financial statement.
Yes, I will do that. Could I just leave you with one thought, which no decision has to be taken now, which is that given the very extensive update reports that David Watson and Andrew Power have given to the meeting, it is something maybe that you might think of sending out by the necessary email system, so that all members do have a copy of the very important update reports that both of them are given. Would you consider that?
I'll do more than consider it, I'll do it.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. It looks, Andrew, as if nobody has any questions for your immaculate accounting. In which case, let us move, if we could, please, to have an indication that your Treasurer's report is indeed adopted. Would those in favour please raise their thumbs so that Chris Davis could see them on his screen?
Excellent.
Are they approved with a claim?
Yeah, and Malcolm's trying to hit it with a racket, so that's good.
All right. Thank you indeed, and thank you, Andrew. So can we now go on to item 7, which is to approve the board's nomination under Article 50.4 of Hayes McIntyre as registered auditors to carry out an independent examination of the accounts for the year 2020-21 by the passing of Resolution 3 in the Notice of Annual General Meeting, which has been circulated. May I please ask that those in support and favour raise their hands. That look all right, Chris?
I'm writing and moving, sorry. Yeah, that's good. We have a chord.
Approved with accord. Many thanks. Can we move on to item 8? To confirm in accordance with Articles 23 and 23.1 and 23.2, the re-election of Mr. Chris Bygrass as chairman of the Tennis Committee as a trustee with effect from 25th of November 2020. Would those in favour please raise their thumbs? Even I can see an ocean of thumbs being raised. You happy, Chris?
Bless you all.
Chris is a
All right, okay, Chris. I'm talking about Chris. You happy?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. The next item, number 9, is to confirm as chairman of the Rackets Committee and a trustee of the company in accordance with Articles 20.2 and 21.5, Mr. Rory D. Sutton, by the passing of Resolution 4 in the notice of the AGM. Would those in favour of Rory Sutton's ascendancy to the chairman of the Rackets Committee and a trustee of the company please show such?
And David, while they're doing it, can I add my thanks to James Coyne for doing it for so many years, to very good effect, and welcome and thank Rory for taking this on and bringing vitality and energy of his own and those around him.
I would indeed endorse those thoughts. Absolutely excellent. And very directly to you, James Coyne, thank you so much. Tough job. Anyway, do we have a unanimous support for Rory Sutton's election as the chairman and as a trustee? Chris?
Yes, we do. Rory is now elected as confirmed as a trustee.
Congratulations, Rory. Can we go on to item number 10? To announce in accordance with operating procedures 11.1 and 11.7, the re-election of Mr. R.P. Patterson and Mr. O. Saunders as members of the Tennis Committee, and in accordance with operating procedures 9.1 and 9.2, the nomination of Mr. P.J. Sutton, Mr. M.A. Bailey, Mr. C.M. Oliphant Callum, Miss L. Van de Swelman, Mr. L.D. Simmons, Mr. E.R.B. Hyde, Mr. J.A. Blackburn, and Mr. T.H. Billings as members of the Rackets Committee with effect from 01 April 2021, and I hope there will be a table large enough to accommodate them all. Anyway, with those in favour, please raise a thumb.
Thank you. This was only an announcement, David.
All right, it's an announcement, so we're all right. Thank you very much indeed. The next item is that of number 11, to submit for approval the board's proposed increases to individual, associate and affiliated club subscription rates in accordance with the schedule which was circulated by the passing of Resolution 5 in the notice of annual general meeting. Would those in favour please raise their thumbs? Is that all right, Chris?
That's good, David. Got that. Thank you very, very much.
Looks as if your income should be enhanced in the coming year. Moving on to items 12. We have the questions submitted to the T&RA by the Monday, the 23rd of November. And we also may have some further questions that those people participating now would like to send in to Chris. So Chris, could you tell us about any questions you've already had submitted to you and arrange for their answering?
Yes, before I do, we move into item 12. What I've asked for is a brief statement from the chairmen of the Tennis and then the Rackets Committee. Chris, can I invite you first to make a statement on the state of tennis and where we're going? Just a few lines, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. Until yesterday, there was much uncertainty on the extent and type of the release of the lockdown restrictions, and it was very difficult to forecast how and when competitions can restart. I think we're still a little in that area, and what is going to be crucial, well, not crucial, but very important, is the which tier areas are released into on December the 3rd. Living in Essex as I do, I just hope that our county council doesn't volunteer, as it did before, to go into the highest tier, which really stymied play at Prested. The good news is that, as has already been discussed, singles certainly appears to be possible. Hopefully we'll keep plugging away to explain that socially distanced doubles is equally inoffensive. Some singles competitions are going to restart, and the T&RA has pledged to produce prizes to promote singles competitions. The youth juniors are unaffected by the bans, provided that they play within their school bubbles. Those who are disabled can also play. That's another of the exemptions. The World Championship Challenge has already been mentioned. It is fixed for May 2021. Hopefully that can be achieved, but there is going to be a meeting of the IWCC in January to see where matters have got to, both in the UK and worldwide, on the travel restrictions and the like. So it's getting better, but we're still a bit in the tunnel.
Thank you, Chris. May I invite Rory, and you're currently, yes, you're unmuted now, just to make a similar statement about rackets and the state of where rackets is going in the new tier system.
Yeah, so obviously we've been working with Chris since April to work out how rackets can be played in a safe way. You know, working with the medical and scientific experts and in line with government restrictions. You know, we've been following a little bit more closely how other sports such as squash have been doing it. We've been assessing our guidelines where relevant. These have been given to clubs to use in line with their own risk assessment and wider COVID response policies. And the same principles are true for schools. In most cases, the school boys and girls have been playing rackets since the start of the school year, which is fantastic. And we've been providing support to the RPA where we're able to. For example, recently we did assess and approve the resumption of doubles, which has been well received. Looking forward for the season, we are working with our fixture secretary and tournament organiser to understand when and in what format we'll be able to play this year's tournaments, whether we will be able to play the Opens and the National Amateur events, our ladies tournaments, as well as the school singles and doubles. Timing for our doubles eliminator and doubles world championship match are due to be discussed with representatives from T&RA in the next World Championship Committee meeting in December.
Great, thank you, Rory. I asked for questions to be sent to me beforehand, and I've had so far I had 5 questions received before the 48-hour deadline. Doesn't preclude further questions. What I propose to now, I'll run through, not all at once, but the 5 questions I have. If in the meantime there are additional questions or anything arising, then please don't raise your hand, or just let me know by chat, and I will endeavour to incorporate those as well. First of all, if I do this right, is hopefully sharing my screen. The first question we had was, what considerations should we give to understanding the effect of COVID on clubs, and what could be done by national governing bodies to assist any clubs that have found long-term adverse effects post-COVID, whether direct or related or not? And perhaps I could invite Chris Bygrass to take that question.
Yeah, sure. As the chairman, David Watson, has already reported in his update, the impact of COVID on clubs and their operations and finances is being kept under review by the Chief Executive, Chris Davis, yourself, and at board meetings. And at the risk of repetition, the position continues to be as set out in the annual report, which is the T&RA have been pleased to offer support to those in real hardship and stand ready with further assistance if required as we move into the new normal. Slightly begs the question, what is the new normal? But let's cross that bridge when we come to it.
Thank you, Chris. Second question is, what specific funds are held by the T&RA, and what are their permitted use for each of these funds, including any mandated restrictions? Who qualifies for the grant, and what are the release parameters? If I may ask Andrew Power, perhaps, to address that question.
Sure, Chris. That's fine. So in terms of what funds are held, I mentioned that in my overall report, just a reminder. So we have 2.43 million at the end of last year. 1.71 million is unrestricted funds. So in other words, we can use it for any purposes that's consistent with our objectives. We have 480,000 in restricted funds. There are 7 restricted funds, the largest one being the Young Professionals Fund, which is 400,000 of that 480,000, and that's restricted uses for the training and development of professional coaches. And then we have 240,000 in endowment funds. That's the Peter Kershaw Bursary Fund. And there we can use the income, not the capital. We can use the income for our charitable purposes, called professional training, participation, etc. And we have to use that income over a 2-year period, otherwise it goes back to the trust. So that's in terms of what funds are held and the permitted usage. We have a grant-making policy that's clearly laid out on the website. Just in terms of the summary, the grant has to be consistent with our overall charitable purpose and charity law obligations. So, for example, that would include the grant generates an identifiable public benefit. It fits with our overall mandate. It does not give undue private benefit. So those are some of the criteria that are used. Then we have a grant giving matrix. So depending on the type of development, for example, of course, the amount of development, that will affect how much grants we will give. And those will be a contribution to the overall cost, not paying for the overall costs. And when we release funds, essentially it's based on the project plan and due diligence working with the recipient of the grant, that they're following what they'd laid out was the expenditure in terms of what the purposes were, and it's meeting that. So I hope that answers that question.
Andrew, thank you very much.
Chris, can I interject briefly? I just wanted to warn people who are planning their pre-dinner cocktails or indeed their dinner. There is an important part of tonight's events is the awards ceremony, which is clearly a virtual ceremony. But Chris, you have encourage everyone got time to watch it.
So, David, I think you broke up there, but I think the key point, once we finish the today's AGM, we're moving on. I've got a virtual awards ceremony, just in case you didn't pick up what David just said then. So stand by for standby. That needs a little bit of production, and that should be happening shortly. In fact, move on. Thank you, David. And thank you, Andrew. If I move on to the third question, what plans are there or protocols in place to review, assess the performance related to the way the games are run in the UK in the light of any known issues and likely changes to the sport dynamics post-COVID? And again, I think I'll return to Chris Bygrass to address that question. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Strategy for the future. The tennis committee prepared and reviewed a vision for the future for the next 10 to 20 years. That was done at the end of last year and was considered at the tennis committee meeting in December. Issues identified included professional recruitment, demographics, improving participation, marketing, communications, new courts, diversity, safety, the role of the T&RA, the role of the IRTPA, timescale, and last but not least, uniqueness of our games. As you've heard, some of these issues are being addressed fully now, and particularly one of the most important elements, professional recruitment via IIP. The fuller review has been slightly stymied by COVID, but only temporarily. And once restrictions are lifted and we know what the new normal looks like, this review will be picked up and fleshed out and proceeded with.
Thank you, Chris. Comprehensive answer. I'm hoping David's not gone away, because question 4, could you provide a little more detail on how you've been trying to persuade the government to allow more play on rackets and real tennis? I'm going to ask David Watson perhaps to address that question.
Chris, I'm sorry, I had to take a brief natural break. I've had a busy day. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I hope it's on the screen. Could you provide a little more detail on what the T&RA have been doing to persuade the government to allow more play on rackets and real tennis?
Chris, it's very kind of you to pass that one to me, but I think, given the you have put it and with the teams, I think you're much better placed to answer that. I mean, I would add that we have encouraged through a variety of different sources members to lobby their local MPs. But Chris, you've been leading the charge on this very energetically, and I think you should get the credit for it.
I will answer the question myself in that case, which I wasn't going to do. The T&RA have been very active and proactive in talking to various government departments, issuing emails to ministers. We've liaised with DCMS, we've liaised with and set up coordination with Sport England, with the LTA, and particularly the LTA quite strong. And for rackets, we've really focused on England squash and also Badminton England. We've formed little cabals, little pressure groups to try and put pressure. Equally, been reaching out into the community and trying to get messages to MPs, Nigel Huddleston and Oliver Dowden, via our local MPs, and that network has seemed to work. The most significant we did is we focused very much on the tiers and trying to break down this intransigence in the tiers. And the LTA, in coordination with the LTA, I mean, they get a lot of the most credit really, but the Director of Communication took a lot of our arguments and supplemented what the LTA were actually debating with DCMS. And I think we're about to see the reward from that as we come out from the tier system into the new tier system post lockdown 2, and we've seen a lot more relaxation at tier 2. And I think that's for tennis. And for rackets, we're going to see a return to the bubble system, which is in racket speak phase 2. It's very complicated. You have to follow this quite closely, but it's liberating more rackets. And in particular, the area we've got is we've got the under 18s for both sports are playing freely along with the disabled. So we are getting government concessions. It's slow. It is very frustrating, And I must also thank the members of the teams who have worked with me on this. So we've had a Project Restart team, Owen Saunders, Chris Lintott and Ronald Patterson. And for rackets, I was working initially with Rory Sutton and Leah and a few others to try and really move things along. There's a lot more I could say, but just for the interest of moving forward in people's dinner and the fact my dog's barking downstairs, I'll move on to question 5. And question 5, the last question we had pre-submitted, is what data, evidence or information has the T&RA on the actual transmission of the current COVID virus by people's engagement in lessons, tennis singles and tennis doubles? I'm going to try and pass this to Chris Bygrass. I have a horrible feeling he's going to pass it back to me. I shall try.
You're absolutely correct.
I hope the answer is absolutely none.
Okay, we have. Well,
I would just comment. I share the intense frustration of everyone in the real tennis community at the illogicality of the government guidelines, and particularly the permission that gyms continue to operate, whereas we couldn't. But that is the trouble with hastily drafted legislation, which is not attenuated to any of our sports. But there we are. But Chris, I think you are better placed to answer this, because I am not the recipient of comments or feedback from individual clubs or members.
Well, you just gave me time to threaten the dog and silence him, so all is now well in the Davis household. Evidence is tricky, but I mean the two principal sources of infection are via the aerosol and what we're breathing out and what we're sneezing into the air, and by the touch, the fomite condition. And we really discard the latter because we can mitigate against it. So we focus entirely on what the aerosol problem is. There is very little evidence if you have two people separated by 90 feet and a net of any risk of infection at all. So equally, we share, or the groups have shared the frustration of the tennis community. And for tennis lessons, one-on-one tennis lessons, either side of the net, tennis singles, there's very, very little evidence suggest. Why tennis double? And where we've permitted or suggested that tennis doubles can continue, it's just putting two people in closer proximity just simply increases that risk. Why is it different to lawn tennis? Indoor lawn tennis is because you have a runoff area in lawn tennis, and your aerosol transmission or your aerosol transmissions are not confined by space. It's as simple as that. And we very closely mirrored the work of England squash in terms of the doubles and not actually permitting tournament doubles. So little evidence, little tangible evidence. I mean, we have seen some very good work has gone on, ironically, at tennis clubs with carbon dioxide monitors to try and assess the levels of transmission, obviously using carbon dioxide as a different vector. That's the best evidence we've got, and actually the conclusion was it makes very little difference at all. But you know, we are not scientists. What I think the groups have, in essence, looked at safety first and not wanting to create a headline, and certainly not wanting to get anybody unnecessarily affected.
Chris, I think you've given a very good up-to-date explanation, scientific and other. So can I suggest that we move on?
I had moved on.
All right.
I'm keen, Chris, that we show everybody your team, you and your team's wonderful montage of the awards. But I don't want to
show. We are going to move very quickly to that. I've got one request to make, and the request before we come to the end of the meeting, which is, David, you have in your report spent some time, very interestingly, focusing on the IIP programme, which I believe is actually the most important key initiative involving more people that the T&RA have taken in arguably 10 years. You said we would be having frequent reports. As you know, there has been a direct £50,000 new funding that has been raised to do with this, and there's further money coming from the T&RA. Could I make a request that by no later than May next year, i.e. in 6 months' time, we really are sent a very comprehensive update report on what has been accomplished in this vital programme, which clubs are participating, and who the professionals are, the young professionals who have been recruited. I think it would be very encouraging for the members of the T&RA to know about that.
David, thank you for your encouragement on this programme, and I know John Whiting was on the call. I hope he still is, and I hope, John, you stay and watch the montage of the ceremony, because I think a huge amount of people have been involved, and I can see Carl in my picture, who's put a huge amount of work and time and has persuaded a lot of our generous patrons to put money behind it. In my speech, I said we would give regular updates, and we will. Chris Davis, I don't know if John Whiting is still on the call, but if he is, I would love him to give an update, because I think he owns the privilege of so doing.
Excellent. Is he on the call, Chris?
Yes, he is. John, would you like to speak?
Absolutely. I hadn't anticipated that. I wouldn't have had 2 glasses of wine. David, it's a good point. IIP is in great shape. We're now at the launch stage, and IIP is run by OCIP, which is the Operating and Continual Improvement Panel. And there's representatives of our community looking after every aspect, from mentoring the professionals and the apprentices, all the way through to funding, financing, and every other aspect. So that's all in place. We've got now an excellent website, which is open for everyone to see. It's very youthfully based and very vibrant. We've got introductory booklets which are being prepared for professionals and apprentices, to explain to them the opportunities that lie ahead if they come into the world of professional tennis. And also we've got a mammoth document, which is the training manual, or the training pathway, which we produced with some of the best professionals in the world, and they put a lot of time in. And it's a very detailed document explaining everything that needs to be done in terms of real tennis to progress from levels 1 through to 3. There's heavy emphasis, which I hope you all realise or know on this. There's very heavy emphasis on business, commercial and marketing skills. Because while we want the tennis players to be excellent tennis players, we also want them to make a difference in the clubs. And to make a difference in the clubs by attracting more people and by improving the footfall, to improve the revenue and improve the revenue for their own salaries, and obviously for the sustaining of the clubs. So all that's in place. If anybody wants to see it, I think Chris Davis can make that available. We've also we've got Prince Edward, His Royal Highness the Earl of Wessex, as our patron now, and he has very kindly agreed to once a year present the awards to the apprentices that are coming through, and also to the professionals who are upskilling. So when they become level 2, level 3, or whatever they may be, they will receive their accreditation on awards day from the Earl of Wessex, and we can have a nice party and lots of people can be there, and it can be an annual event. We hope, David, that we will, in fact, we don't hope, it will happen this year in 2021, will be the first awards day. There won't be any apprentices because they won't have finished their apprenticeships by then. They'll finish their apprenticeships in 2022. So that's be the first time that you see them. We've got a whole system of attracting, recruiting and retaining in place, which is headed up by Steve Brewerton, who is head of at Hatfield, and he's got a team who are looking for youngsters who show an ability, and they must have an ability to play the game, because we don't want all our professionals to be handicapped 30 or 40. We really want, and the professionals themselves are kind of insisting on this, that we get professionals in the game whose handicap are scratch, single figures and that sort of level. And I know there's a bit of conflict here, because some people would say, well, why would you want to sacrifice a good professional, 30 handicap professional who can run a club for someone who is a scratch handicapper? Well, I think there's place in our community or space in our community for everybody. So, and I think that we will never be short of 30 handicappers who are good professionals, but we are short of, and we will be short of very good handicappers being professionals. So we're focusing on that. We hope to bring in about 4 apprentices each year coming through the scheme, and that's at apprentice level. So they're the youngsters coming in, and the T&RA generously are putting up the £50,000 to that. RCC, which is the Real Champions Club, will be putting up £40,000 towards that, and the Deadness have put up £8,000, I think, and the tennis clubs themselves, through a court levy, are putting up another £25,000. So there's a considerable amount of money coming into this. So it's very well funded. We are trying to make it as cost neutral as possible for the clubs, because there must be a fear for any host club that's going to take on these apprentices, that it's going to cost them a lot in time and in court fees. So we've got a scheme to make it as cost neutral as possible, and through the funding, 75% towards the apprentice salaries and £5,000 a year towards court and professional expenses, and a rebate on the court levy, and also the money that can be monetized out of having the apprentice there anyway, does make it, and I am absolutely convinced it does make it cost neutral. So cost is not an objection, and that no club should worry really about the cost. There may be other causes, but cost isn't one of them. We've now progressed to the point, as I said, we're at launch. We've got the first club, and I can announce, I think it's already been announced, that Wellington is the first club to come forward as a host club, and we applaud them for doing that, setting the to hit the start line first, and they will be taking on an apprentice in the first part of next year, I guess, or sooner. I don't know the absolute details of that. And then we've got another club, and it may very well be Hatfield that'll be coming on shortly after that. We've got interest from other clubs as well. So there's host clubs that are interested. Steve Brewerton, I don't know whether he's on the line here, I can't see, but I know that we've got 4 or 5 youngsters that have already been interviewed, and they are all good standard, and so that's looking very healthy. So we know that we can attract and recruit. The other part of our scheme, of course, is that all our existing professionals are getting upgraded. So your money, the T&RA money, is going towards the workshops, the accreditations and the assessments of all our existing professionals. And our existing professionals, each one of them will have their own logbook, and that will be updated when they pass from levels 1 to 2 or 3 or whatever, or if they achieve anything that is specific in competitions or projects or anything else, and that will go with them. So when the clubs say, right, we're looking for a new professional, we want a level 2 professional, the level 2 professionals will, and I hope that they will advertise that widely, Level 2 professionals will be attracted and go along for the interviews, and they'll have their logbooks with them, and everybody will be accredited, and it will be very open and obvious as to where people are and what they've done. So there's a standardization, the amount of effort going into giving all of the professionals the business skills, the commercial skills and the marketing skills over the next few years will filter through to improve the success of the clubs, to increase the amount of money coming in, which will increase the wages of the professionals and the sustainability of the clubs, and should therefore self-perpetuate after that. So, I mean, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
John, I think you have given an absolutely admirable presentation, and everybody is infinitely better informed as a result of it. And I really do thank you and all of your colleagues who've put so much into this. As I say, I think this is going to be the most important initiative the T&RA have arguably taken in 5 years to 10 years. May I, in that context, add one final thing? David Watson mentioned, of course, there is a different but nevertheless very relevant need in the rackets world regarding the professional flow. And may I please hope and ask that over the next 6 months, what lessons are being learned from the tennis side can now begin to be filtered into a similar program that could be launched before the end of 2021 into the rackets world of the schools. I think we could make a very significant influence. So thank you very much indeed. And with that, I suggest we now bring our AGM to a conclusion. And as I do so, I'd like to offer my really very warmest thanks to Chris Davis and his team for putting the whole of this virtual AGM together with notably very few hitches, it would appear to be, that have taken place today, other than when the chairman had to take a natural break when he was about to make a very formal presentation. Other than that, it seems to have been impeccable, and we've learned something as an association, that we can do this, and we've had 75 to 80 of our members, a record number, participating. So I thank you very, very much indeed, all of you. Olga, Jemima, Andrina, Chris, David Watson, and all the people on the board. It's been quite a year, but I think the T&RA are going to emerge out of this in 2021 looking good and very constructive. With that, I suggest that our formal meeting is concluded. And if Chris, you would now explain how you're going to put up your presentation video.
It's with great pleasure that I can award the 2019-20 Negretti Cup to Tom Billings. The Negretti is for the amateur who's put in the best performance over the previous year, and with Tom having reached the pinnacle of the game and becoming a single world champion, there's no one more deserving. Well done, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
So Tom, how did it feel winning the world champs?
It was a completely surreal experience, something I had aimed for many years, something that I always dreamed would happen, but it's one of those things that you never really, you can never really bank on it, so it was incredibly surreal. Yeah.
Great, well done.
Thank you.
Play, 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 play.
with great pleasure that I can award this year's Lilibet Trophy to Tara Lumley. The Lilibet is awarded to the lady who's put in the best performances over the last year, and Tara winning the British Open singles, the British Open doubles, and the World Championship was a great achievement. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm delighted to win this trophy. I started playing rackets a couple of years ago, and I feel like I put a lot of work into my game in the past couple of years, so it's great to receive this award in recognition of this. Also, I feel like the ladies' game is growing both in terms of numbers and quality, and it's great to be a part of this.
Play, 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 play.
On behalf of the Rackets Committee, it gives me great pleasure to be able to award the 2019-20 Latham Award to you. The Latham Award is awarded to the British professional who's put in the best performances over the last year. And with your wins in the invitational singles, the pro singles, and then most recently the US Open in Chicago, there's no one more deserving. So, so well done. I don't know if you want to say a few words, and perhaps what's next for your career.
Yeah, well, just firstly, like to say thanks for the award. Great honour to win this one, especially after Bombers just nicked it off me last year, taking me down in the pro singles in an epic 5-gamer. So that was fun. Personally, yeah, I'd like to challenge Tom Billings at some stage of a world championship. Give that a go. Been working towards that for the last couple of years, so that's my main goal. And also at some stage get the doubles with Alex Dunkley-Flines. We haven't had that much success recently, but hopefully just keep working towards that and get there eventually. Thanks, Rory.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ben. Well done again.
Play, 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 play. Play, play, play.
I'm delighted to award this year's Berlin Trophy to Tara Lumley. The Berlin is awarded for the best amateur performance by a British player over the previous year. Not only has Tara won the Australian Open singles and doubles, she's also now the holder of the world doubles for both rackets and real tennis. Well done.
Thanks, Rory. Yeah, I'm delighted to receive the Berlin prize this year. As Rory highlighted, I've had a great season, both across real tennis and rackets, and I'm delighted to have my name amongst all of these superstars who are already on it.
Great shot. 30-15. Rally.
It's fantastic to be at Seacourt and to make a very, very special presentation, the Greenwood Trophy, which is awarded for the most improved professional amateur in the British game. And I'm happy to say that Will Flynn went from handicap 25 to handicap 15 in the last 12 months. That's the season 2019-2020. I'm delighted to... Actually, I think I'm going to bump hands. I'm going to do the bump. Well done.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you to Chris and the rest of the T&RA committee, everyone who kind of put my name forward. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you to everyone that has coached me in the past season, especially Drew down here. Thank you to all the Dennists as well who have provided me with all the academies. That's been a massive help, and yes, thank you.
Ben, I'm very pleased to present to you on behalf of the Tennis Committee of the T&RA the David Warburg Salver for the 2019-2020 season. The Warburg Trophy, or Salver as it's commonly known, is awarded for the best men's or ladies' professional performance, and in your case is particularly awarded for your matches in Australia in January for the World Championship Eliminator against Chris Chapman. Obviously, due to COVID restrictions, I can't give you the trophy personally, but it will be delivered to you physically in due course. However, you have seen photographs of it, and you'll see that you're joining an illustrious list of professionals who have previously been awarded this trophy. So many congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, it's an honour to be have my name up in lights with some of the people that are on that salver. It's an incredible list. I'd just like to say thank you to the Tennis Committee for putting me forwards and recognising the efforts of my playing career over the last year. We've obviously got a lot of British-based professionals to choose from, so thank you for putting my name forwards, and just to be in the conversation is fantastic. So to actually win it is great. So thank you very much to the T&RA for the recognition.
I'm in North London, near the hallowed portals of Lord's Cricket Ground, clutching the Maltby Salver, which it is the chairman's privilege to award to the outstanding volunteer who has supported the T&RA and the games, the objectives of the T&RA in the last year. And this year's worthy winner, only possible serious candidate for the award, John Whiting, is here. And John, would you come and join me and receive with my thanks and our thanks for Maltby Salver for all that you have done via IIP programme. I'll stay suitably distant. John, thank you.
Well, David, thank you very much indeed. Well, I think really that I'm receiving this on behalf of IIP, Investing in Professionals. And in the 12 months since conception through to launch, there's been 46 people who have volunteered and given their time free of charge. And I'd especially like to mention the professionals in this, because the professionals have really, to a man, they've stepped up and they've helped with the planning of the training, and they've helped with the planning of the recruitment and every other aspect of IIP, and they've given their time selflessly, so thank you. And the club representatives who have been extraordinarily supportive throughout the whole process have been fantastic. And then the T&RA have been there to cross the T's and dot the I's, for which we're very grateful. So really, I'm accepting this on behalf of all those volunteers who have been so brilliant putting in their time and effort for the professionals and real tennis in general. So on behalf, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Don, and to all associated. It's been a great success. Thank you.
David, back to you.
Well, Chris, this is indeed the end of our unique T&RA virtual AGM. And what a good way to finish with that video film. And once again to John, thank you so much, John Whiting, for your formidable efforts and getting so many wonderful volunteers. The T&RA has always been based around having remarkable volunteer help, and never more so than this last year. So on that high note, I thank you all and suggest we bring our AGM to a conclusion. Good night and farewell.